So yeah, so that's just one of those moments. But it's been a journey, and I know a lot of your viewers are probably going through or have been through the same thing, and just keep going through it. Find some joy in it, find some humor in it, find some fun in it, and just yeah, figure out the meaning. There's a meaning somewhere.
And what is the 4444?
Well, that's the meaning I gave my comeback, because I came from a 4,000 square foot home to a 400 square foot house, and I went from making around 400 to 600,000 a year to pretty much nothing. But I knew at 400 I'm pretty good. So then I gave it let that be an income goal, and then let it be a net worth goal of 4 million.
When you're doing a comeback, you can have your big goals, but focusing on all those, they say you don't see the entire ladder until you get to the top. So just going up one stair at a time, it will lead you somewhere. And the person that you are today is not the person you're going to be when you get to the top. So have faith in the person at the top of the stairs, and the person that is there today will thank that person in the future.
Welcome to the Too Dad to Quit podcast,
the podcast where we highlight stories of dads on the other side of divorce
to inspire and give strength to dads going through it.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Yoel.
Welcome back to the Too Dad to Quit podcast. You can find us on twodadtoquit.com, Too Dad to Quit on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And please reach out to us. We want to share your story, hear your story, and your story can be very helpful to other people. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And thank you for your patience with the summer break. And we are back in full force. Today, we are sitting with Robb Brooks. Robb lives in Sarasota, Florida, and has been divorced for over 6 years. The divorce with his once sweetheart turned into a nuclear battle that almost destroyed him. Today, his ex went from hating him, not talking to him ever, to Robb and his ex sitting with each other during halftime at his son's lacrosse games, getting along with her boyfriend, and her texting him how they are slaying the co-parenting game. Robb has also written 2 books teaching dads how to make their greatest comeback after divorce. So Robb, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, of course. So you always lived in Florida? You're a migrant like most Floridians?
No, I'm actually a third generation born and raised here. So born and raised in Miami, Florida. My dad was born there and his dad was born there. So yeah, we're longtime Floridians here, lifelong.
Wow, amazing. And and how many kids do you have?
2. I have 2 boys.
Nice. So I saw you're like a real Floridian. So you're a water guy as well. So
yes.
So what do you do down there for free time?
Top passions are offshore big game fishing, and scuba diving. So that's what we do pretty much all the time. And then when wintertime, we'll switch to do some hunting and ATV riding. But definitely we're on the water a lot. We're on boats a lot. And yeah, that's how we spend our time. And that's what I grew up doing. So pass that on to my sons. My sons now are 17 and 14.
Wow, awesome.
So, yeah.
And you have your own boat there?
I do, yes.
It's a speedboat, motorboat, big boat.
It's an offshore fishing boat. That's the center console. So it's what we call an open fisherman. And we just go out there. We do a lot of fishing, and the boats here are just it's a pretty popular style of boat. I don't know if you're familiar with that over there in Israel. Center console. It's got you just drive it from the center and you can walk around it. So when you're fishing, you're fighting the fish. It's easy to cruise around, and very popular models here. So yeah, they're awesome.
Awesome. And your scuba diving, you do that while you're fishing, or that's like at different places to go?
Yeah. The ultimate day. Yeah, actually, the ultimate day is coming after you've been out fishing all day, catch a lot of fish. You come on in, you jump in, you do some diving, and you catch some lobster. So then you have a great dinner. We call them dolphin, but the rest of the world calls them mahi. So it's not the bottlenose porpoise. It's the dolphin fish. That's what we mostly fish for here. And then and we scuba dive for lobster, which is great. So yeah, wow. That's a perfect Florida day right there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I take my kids snorkeling, and scuba diving is short on my list. So hopefully this year is the year that I tackle that.
It's awesome, and it's an amazing thing to pass on with your children. Just to be diving and to watch your kids diving with you and just watch them doing it is an amazing feeling. So yeah, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, to me, just having your head underwater and there's nothing around to distract you is like the most peaceful place. We're, I guess, 20 minutes from the beach, so we'll just run over there for 2 hours. It's 20-minute drive, 20-minute drive back and forth, and be in the water for an hour, and it just changes everybody's mood.
That's what I always say. No matter what it is you're thinking about, no matter what's going on in the world, when you are underwater, you don't think any of it, good, bad, or ugly. You're just present down there with you, the reef, the fish, and you're just enjoying your time. It's amazing. It's the most present I think I've ever been. So I love it. That's one of the big allures of it. So no doubt.
Wow. And so I guess you were married for how long? If 16,
we were married
years?
for about 13 years, and we dated for 4 years before. So we were together for about 17 years, when it
Right.
So
Got it. And so we don't like to delve on the nitty gritty and the he's and she's, but from what I understand, it wasn't pleasant, that whole experience. But the reason why you're on here is I want to talk about, Yoel's written a book, I've written children's books. So finding an outlet after is so important. And I would like to hear, about your books and what the goal was and what inspired you to go that route.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I agree with you. The he said, she said. I mean, it just like it started off okay. Like it started off like okay, I didn't really want us to end it. I didn't think she did either. It kind of we just during the beginning of it, we were kind of like friendly. We were separated but friendly. We got together, we hung out. Everything looks like okay, maybe this is going to work out itself out. But then at some point it didn't, and I think that's when the lawyers got a hold of her and everything. So, but then it just went from figuring it out pleasant to an absolute nuclear war that was just a battle unlike any. And then what I figured out was once all that ended, and that was bad, okay, and people tell you divorce is bad, but what nobody tells you, and something that I coined the term post-divorce male meltdown mode, is that most men and most dads, they just melt down after the divorce. I mean, it's hard enough getting through the divorce, but then after you think, okay, we'll sign the paperwork, it'll be over. But there's just this period. And for me, it was a couple of years of just, man, I lost everything. My just whole life just burnt down and melted down. And it was unbearable. And,
Yeah.
And nobody really, I wasn't really prepared for that. And so I just felt like, I mean, for one, I felt like something was wrong with me. I thought, okay, I'm the only one that's having this effect. You see a lot of dudes, they get divorced, they get a new girl. She's, usually hotter. They're having a good time. And I did all that stuff too. But sometimes some make more money. And I realized that's like the rarity. The majority of the men, their life just melts down. And that was mine. So so I did. So my outlet was I wrote a book. It's called p.d.m.m. Post-divorce male meltdown mode, and it basically just talks about that's the ailment and some of the reasons of why that happens to a man post-divorce. So yeah. So that was probably worse than the battle itself. So yeah. So
Yeah, and can you highlight like one or two of those reasons, and do you have solutions for those reasons in the book as well?
Well, yeah, sure, absolutely. I think one of the biggest reasons is the lack of identity. Your whole identity changes. You go from being family, you go from being husband, dad, family man, to really you're relegated to single bachelor. And because here, your typical post-divorce schedule is Wednesdays and every other weekend, right? So, and it's almost a joke, like it's almost like a national joke. Oh yeah, you must be a divorced dad. You see with the kid on Wednesday, your kids on Wednesday. So I mean, so now you went from your house, your big house with the whole family. Now you're by yourself. And at my point out, I downgraded my house as a smaller place, and you're by yourself all the time. You're not driving them to school. I drove them to school every day. So all of those things you're no longer doing, and it's just you're basically a bachelor again. And It's just and yeah, of course you have kids and you're still a dad, but it's just not the same. And I just think that that's just that identity shift is just a hard thing to get accustomed to. So, and
Yeah.
I don't know the reason. I just know that that's just something that happens, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I think most of my circle has felt that as well. Um, and do you have any, solutions that, it seems like you went from, you know, this big family to the battle to realizing you were in meltdown mode, and then something clicked and you were like, all right, I need to make the next book is called, focusing the greatest comeback, right?
right.
So how did you go from one book to the other book, so to speak?
Well, I mean, because okay, so I wrote this book p.d.m.m. first because I wanted to. Oh, it's kind of coming out weird there, but because I
Yeah,
wanted
there
to
you go.
basically, I wanted to highlight what the problem is, you know, what happens,
Yeah.
and that it's not just you, or no, it just wasn't me. And I realized that it just wasn't me because if you look around, like if you see it, and like if you see your friends, you might see other relatives of yours that have gone through divorce. You look in Hollywood, you definitely see it in the celebrity world. You see a celebrity get divorced and the guy just melts down. You see that quite a bit. So there's a certain it kind of, it's weird to say, but it kind of feels like it's not just you. Like it's just not, you're not
Yeah.
the only problem. It happens to everybody, and for some reason there's some kind of solace and there's some kind of comfort in that. And not that I want everybody to go through a meltdown, but it just sort of feels better when you're not in the boat by yourself.
Yeah, of
So
course.
that was one thing that gave me a lot of comfort. And then the other thing is, like, looking back, and so I kind of wrote the book to tell other dads, hey, look, it's not just you, it's all of us. We're a huge group, we're huge, there's a lot of us under this tent here. And then so going forward, my wish is that people know this can happen to you after divorce. So for one, don't kill yourself in the fight. In the battle, like I said, I went through a nuclear battle. Well, that battle left me battered, tattered. It left me a shell of who I was, and it didn't leave my kids with the best dad in the world after. So it definitely didn't leave me what we started out with in the process. So honestly, like, going back, I would have taken some of the fight out of it, of the divorce, and just been a little bit more, yeah, sure, whatever they want, kind of a deal, and figured out that would all work itself out later. So, because that just happens. Sometimes you fight so hard in the battle, you're like, the 12 rounds are over, then you got life to deal with after.
Yeah.
So that's just something that I would. And some people that did tell me that during the process, they said,
Yeah,
hey,
but you never believe him.
you never believe it. And you think, and some people say, like, oh, like, just don't worry about it, just like get your kids when they're 18. I mean, you're like, what? That's like the craziest thing ever, to wait till and I'm like, I would never do that, but I
Right.
can realize if I just said, oh, because it could be in a reverse psychology. Oh, you know what? You want the kids, just take them. They might say, oh, no, 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 wait a minute. Or a judge might have stepped in and said, no, you can't leave your kids. But for some crazy reason, the more you fight for what your children, the more they want to keep them from you. It's just a weird thing. It's just a weird thing. But I mean, so yeah, so that was just, I mean, that's a hard advice to take. But going back, I think probably, because in the end it kind of works out, after post divorce. You just got to get through it. And it's hard. So I just would want other men to know that, hey, this is something, it's a thing, it happens. Know that it's going to happen. So if you know about it, you can be prepared,
Right.
and just not let your life melt down. And then to answer your question was, like, how did I go from that? Basically, I hit rock bottom. So, rock bottom became the solid foundation upon which I rebuilt my life. And I didn't say that. J.K. Rowling said that, but it's a great quote. And ironically, she said that after her divorce. So this is a
Yeah.
lady that was on welfare after divorce, and she wrote, those the famous Harry Potter books, and became a billionaire.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the impetus for me, just hitting rock bottom. So yeah.
And you spoke about, you know, you changed as a dad, and that your ability to father, changed a bit during, right after the divorce and during the divorce. And can you talk to that a little bit? How, you know, what that toll took on you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mean like how I became a worse dad or a better dad? Like which part?
Both. Yeah, you got it again, rock bottom, but realizing
Okay.
that you were. How about realize how you realized you were becoming a worse dad, and then how you were able to change that to focus back on being the dad you wanted to be.
Okay, sure. Okay, so this might help some of your viewers because I think that a lot of times when you hear that people like dads don't want to abandon their kids. A lot of dads they get divorced and they don't see their kids anymore, they abandon their kids. Well, they don't do it because they want to. They don't certainly don't do it because they don't love their kids and they don't love their children anymore. They do it because they're ashamed of who they've become after. So I became super ashamed of just this loser that I became. My life completely melted down. I let it melt down. It was my fault, but it was so bad that my kids grew up with a dad that was winning, was good in business, good in life, pretty good at everything. But then post divorce, it was just so bad. I just didn't want them to see it. So I stopped even seeing them. So the thing that I
Wow.
fought so hard for was custody, that I didn't even really like want to see them anymore. Not because I didn't love them. It killed me. It ripped me apart. I mean, man, I got to tell you, I mean, I was like, I didn't want to live. I mean, there were so many days I just did not. And I think every divorced dad knows. I mean, they've all had that moment, and I've had many of those moments. And I lost my faith. I mean, just a lot of things. And so yeah, I mean, it was pretty hard. And just so I didn't. I mean, from the outside looking in, I was a bad dad, but it killed me. It killed me not to get my kids. But then it also killed me for me to see them who I became, and there was just so much shame in that. And yeah, and it took a while to get through that. It did. And thankfully, God is graceful, my kids were graceful. And I mean, I'm kind of breaking up just thinking about it, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you
just
speak about your moment with God when you kind of had a conversation with him. Can
yeah, I
you
mean,
talk to that a little bit?
yeah, I mean there was like a few different moments with God. I mean, I'm very spiritual. And there was a moment when I lost my faith really bad. And I'm out fishing one day, so I'm out fishing by myself, and every other area of my life would look like I'm winning, but this divorce is just killing me so bad that I'm like God, what? And take me now. Like, it's like I'm having the best day. I'm actually having one of the best fishing days of my life, actually. And I'm like, all right, God. And I'm mad at God also. Okay. But I'm still like, okay, wow, this is amazing. This is we're out in the ocean. It's a beautiful ocean. Everything's amazing. I'm like, what an amazing creator you are. But man, my life is miserable. Just take me now. What are you doing with me here? And at that moment, the line rings, the line starts singing, a fish is on the line, a huge fish. And that particular fish came in with a bunch of, we have weed lines here in Florida where there's like just floating, it's called sargassum, which is just seaweed.
Yeah.
And this, my whole life fishing since I was a kid, this has never ever happened. But that fish went into the weed line and got a big patch of weed stuck on it, right? So between the fish line and the fish, so which makes it harder to reel in for me. And
Yeah.
I'm laughing at God. I know he's making a joke with me as I'm there, but it was just one of those moments that you just kind of laugh at God's sense of humor of it all and just know that he's got a bigger plan. And to be honest, I still haven't figured out what the plan is. I'm still praying to figure out what the plan is and all this, but I know that there's some plan. And so yeah, so that's just one of those moments. But it's been a journey. And I know a lot of your viewers are probably going through or have been through the same thing. And just keep going through it, find some joy in it, find some humor in it, find some fun in it, and just, yeah, figure out the meaning. There's a meaning somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I describe myself as like a why guy. Like
Right.
I'm always trying to figure out why, I cross the street and this puddle splashed in my face, or, the simplest things to like the most complicated things. And that was like the hardest thing for me, just figuring out why. And I still don't have answers, but I do have faith that one day I will. And this podcast is you know, I decided just every day I need to do something productive. And I also, like to help others. So if there's anything I can give back, especially for, what you and I have been through, and many of our listeners have been through, and to warn, couples that we have, 20% of our listeners are female. So to even have them listen to what a man goes through, and it's not, that they don't want to be with their kids, or they, any of it, it's the least I can do and make something positive out of this situation, is kind of how I see it. So what was that turning point where you were like, all right, this guy, I need to step up. My kids need to be with me. I need to show them who I am. How did you make that switch?
Well, the turning point was a few things. I knew that I had to make making a comeback the theme of my life. So I just had to make a comeback, and nothing was just really working. So it was just that moment of hitting rock bottom. I had lost a house that I loved. So I lost a house. I was really relegated to living in a shack, and really really sucked. I mean, beyond. I mean, I went through like a life of pretty luxurious life to not that, and it was just like that was my rock bottom moment, and I said, okay, I have to making it come back the theme of my life, and I have to figure out how to do that. And I so once I realized I'm going to make a comeback, then I gave my comeback a meaning. I gave it a theme, which is Play 4444, which is the name of my second book. And the reason why, and for everyone here, like writing a book, having a podcast, a video, whatever, your mess becomes your message. So you don't have to, like, no one's gonna, like, a publishing house isn't gonna call you and say, hey, go write a book. Spotify is not going to call you and say, hey, make this podcast, or go make a YouTube channel. Like, so put your message out there, and it's going to resonate with somebody. There's people out there that your message will resonate with, and if it's just cathartic for you just to put it out there, assuming nobody sees it or hears it, well, I was okay with that too. I was okay writing a book. It was just for me. But I mean, I really want it to be for other dads. I wanted to help other dads, and that's the whole thing. And then my second book, Your Greatest Comeback Ever, I want that to be for everybody that's ever had to make a comeback, because we've all have to make comebacks in life. And I've always been pretty good about rebounding and making comebacks. So I've always been pretty good at that. So I thought, okay, you know what? That's something I can do. And it's a message that came from God too. Like, God gave me the message to do it. So I'm very attuned to, when you have a purpose and what I call an assignment. I prayed a new prayer to God. I actually prayed for an assignment. Because at some point I just gave up. I'm like, God, I give up. I don't know what, either take me, help me, or just what can I do for you? Tell me something I can do for you and I'll do it. Because there was nothing left. My business wasn't working. Nothing was working at all in my life. So I just said, God, you know what? How about you give me something to do and I'll do it. And, so that was it. And
And what is the 4444 about?
Well, that's the meaning I gave my comeback, because I came from a 4,000 square foot home to a 400 square foot house. And I went from making around 400 to 600,000 a year to pretty much nothing. But I knew at 400, I'm pretty good. So then I gave it let that be an income goal, and then let it be a net worth goal of 4 million. And wow. The reason, but I gave those numbers meaning, but those numbers kept popping up everywhere. So before I gave them the meaning, everywhere I turned on a clock, I'd see 444. I'd see a license plate, 4444. My old car, I had a Hummer that had the license plate, just by pure coincidence, of 44. So it was it 4444? Yeah, it was actually. So, and I would just see, I turn on the radio, I'd see, on the radio, it'd say 4444. I'd see it everywhere. So I started to think, what the heck does this mean? And those were the meaning that I gave it. So in my book, I talk about, you could see repeating patterns in your life, and that's God, that's the angels, that's the universe trying to send a message to you. So be receptive to those kind of message. And I talk about those repeating patterns can be anything. They can be numbers, they can be colors, they can be maybe an animal. You keep seeing a similar animal everywhere. It could be anything. But sometimes when you keep seeing that in your life, stop, pause, and question it. Think of what's going on here. As you said, you're a why guy. Why am I seeing this number all the time?
So I was telling somebody this week that, like, my ears are always open to all those messages. I was talking to somebody like halfway across the world, and I was asking a question. They wouldn't give me the answer. And like, I'm driving down the road, and I was like, I don't know what it is, but like, I'm getting something with these letters. And like, the person on the other side of the phone just almost had a heart attack. because I
Really?
actually I took the words right out of their mouth. So,
Wow.
yeah. So I've always been attuned. Um, I didn't grow up religious, but I when I decided to become religious, like in my mind, I always had signs pointing me the next direction to go and the next step to take until my divorce. And that's when everything stopped. And that time is so hard for me because to this day, I really don't know. I don't see more than a day. I really can't. I
Wow.
focus on the day, and when you're doing a comeback, you can have your big goals, but focusing on all those, they say you don't see the entire ladder until you get to the top. So just going up one stair at a time, it will lead you somewhere. And the person that you are today is not the person you're going to be when you get to the top. So have faith in the person at the top of the stairs, and the person that is there today will thank that person in the future. So there's a lot of, I don't know if the right word is manifesting, but really just listening, because usually your mind and whatever you want to call it hears it, but sometimes it has a really hard time believing it. And I think a lot of people need to be much more receptive to those messages, and not just kind of coast, I guess, through life, um, and feel accomplished. So you said you rebuilt and had a few comebacks in your life. We'll get to where you're at now, but you have any comebacks from your past that you'd like to tell a story about? Because it sounds like
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but by the way, though, we just talked about those signs. I call them the cues and clues of the universe. So I
nice.
always say be open to the cues and clues of the universe. And you talking about being on the ladder, that kind of resonates because there is an exercise I do where I talk to my higher self, the guy that's got there and
Yeah,
achieved it. And it's funny you mentioned being on a ladder because where is he? He's up higher on a ladder. So
yeah,
yeah, that's kind of a good analogy there. Perfect. But yeah, so comebacks, I mean, all my life. I mean, you tell me which one do you want to know about? I mean, I've made a lot of them. So
I don't know. You're I don't know, sports, fishing. I don't know.
well, okay, well, I mean, okay, sports, I mean, it always starts at sports. Going back to my days in football, high school football, I literally was the worst kid on my team in ninth grade, freshman year. I was literally the worst. I couldn't run a lap. I couldn't do anything. Everyone made fun of me. Senior year, I was not only the captain of the team, I was all county in Miami, which that's saying something because you got a lot of great athletes down there in Miami.
Yeah, wow.
So I was a captain of the team. The lap I could barely run. I mean, I was a bigger guy, so I was an offensive lineman. So the lap I could barely run. By senior year, I'm running it in the group with linebackers and like some defensive backs. So I'm running with I'm in the faster kids group than just my position, which I was the only lineman to be running with the faster teammates. So, and it's basically just going from worst to first has been something I've been able to do quite a few times in my life. So yeah, I think that's what kind of instilled into me that, hey, you know what, you don't have to start off something and be great. You're not going to be good at
Yeah,
most things. Michael Jordan, they cut him sophomore year of basketball, so he wasn't the star player. Then obviously he wasn't even close to being the best player. So that's just going to happen with a lot of things. And that's something I tell my kids too, because it's like, hey, when you start something, you're not going to be good at it. You may not be good at it. You may not be great at it, but keep going. You will get better. And so that's just something that has just been innate in me for a long time. And so, yeah. And just anywhere in life and business. In business, it happens with my game of business is one of when you're flipping property, you're doing a lot of deals, a lot of big deals that take time, deals that die a million deaths along the way. So when they happen, they're definitely a comeback, especially for one that seems like it's died. So just a lot of different things.
and have
So
you been
yeah.
able to teach that to your children? The not giving up, and you can do anything, and
Yeah,
be
yeah.
patient.
Yes, it's sometimes it's not the easy, like one son gets it, the other kind of does, but he also wants that positive feedback of doing something good and getting the reward. And I'm like that too. Like, look, I want to do stuff too, where you get immediate positive feedback. That makes me want
Yeah,
to do it better. So it's like if I do something and it works, especially in business, if I do a tactic in business and it works right away, of course I'm going all in and I'm having more fun with it. But it's not always that way. It's just not always going to be like that. And it is hard when you have children. It's hard for them to have that patience, and it's hard for me to have that patience too, even. So, but yeah, it's definitely something I want them to know. Hey, if you're the worst at something, don't worry about it. But both of my kids, and they didn't start in their sport. They played lacrosse, and they're both captains of their team. They're leaders of their
Wow.
team. I'm proud of them for that, and I've instilled that in them to be that. And I've same thing. I've told them you don't have to wait for your coach to lead your team. If be a leader now. I mean, lead your team now. Lead your team as if you're the captain, as if you're the best kid. Don't wait for someone to crown you. And that's a big difference from my day, because in my day, you wait for someone to put the crown or give you the responsibility. So I
Right.
teach my kids, take it, go out there and lead regardless. And what's happened is by them doing that, eventually they find themselves better players, better teammates, inspiring the kids around them. And also they eventually became the captains. But also I noticed that both of them are the only ones who make speeches to their teams before and after games. So yeah, so that's just something
Great.
that's so that I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
And
I've
you
always
look like
been like, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, you look about the same age as me, and like in our dads, like the generation, their generation wasn't really into like the self-involved, the self improvement, self help. So I don't know. I'm just thinking like my dad would have never said, "Hey, just go and be the captain," like or go and just give a speech. You say, "Oh, wait for coach to name you." So
Yeah, it's funny actually because my father wasn't totally around, but wherever I was, I was involved in sports from a really young age, and I don't know, I always was driven to like step up. Like I was, soccer. I would set up my my mom's house. I would set up the hallway with a trampoline at the end of the hallway to practice my left foot, and I would just do it all day long. Like kids were out playing, doing nothing, whatever, and I'd be in my house. I'd be like running patterns, 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 patterns all freaking day long. So to me, I always had that like competitive drive to be better, without that extra push, I would say. But getting, unfortunately, team sports are not such a big thing in this country, and it's one of those things I've regretted a lot, um, in recent, more since the divorce, but like how much I got from organized sports and just where it's a team effort. Oh, if you lose, it's okay. We learn from it. Oh, there is a goal of being the champion, but even if you lose, you can still accomplish something. You can still set goals for yourself. You can pick up your other teammates. Like these were things that were taught to me from a super young age. And wherever I went to school, I was always on some sort of sport team, till even my yearbook in high school. I was the editor in chief by my senior year. Um, so I always, I realized quickly that like privileges came with kind of getting those roles, but also I like teaching people. So it wasn't even more about being, the top. It was about being the one people would listen to. So there was one of my jobs. I was like second in command, and the first in command, he left and he moved, and I had to fight to take over. And when I did, people asked me like, "So is it different? Do you like it?" And I was like, "I just like being the guy that at the end of the day you come to me and I give you an answer, as opposed to the red tape, because I I hate red tape. So I like having being able to be heard. I don't like being a sheep. It's kind of the same thing about listening to the messages. I always had my own. I had my father actually on the podcast, and he talks about me always marching at my own on my own path. There was no one else that could like tell me which way to go, and a lot of it he held against my mother. But when I point blank said to him, I'm like, it wouldn't matter what you said or she said. I was still doing this. He's like, yeah, you're right. So I've always had that personality. I have 5 kids, so each one of them is different, but they're starting, I'm pushing them into roles like that. But it's interesting here. The sports that they play are more like one-on-one things, like taekwondo, jujitsu, ballet. So they're very like one person oriented as opposed to team
Right.
building and things like that. I find it very interesting and sort of unfortunate here, but trying to figure out other ways to instill it. Because if you put a kid enroll them in sports, it's much easier for them to understand. Also, if they're getting it from a coach and not from their parent, just keep going. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Coming from the coach who they can't talk back to because he's the coach, like you said, is a lot different than coming from a parent. Go try again. So I've had to get a little creative with those sorts of things.
Yeah, my sons have great relationships with their coaches, and my younger one's like on a state select team, so he plays with a lot of different teams also.
Nice.
And my older son, his coach actually asked him to be a part-time coach for the younger kids. So
Awesome.
so I'm always thanking the coaches for being a trusted mentor to my sons, and I'm around the team a lot myself. Which was something that I didn't always do. That's a victory for me, because there was a time that, as I mentioned, I just was, I pretty much just tried to avoid being around them in school environments and stuff. So now that's no longer the case, thankfully. But yeah, like I hear you. I mean, I would encourage your children to be, have good relationships with their coaches, of course. And also, but like in BJJ, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep.
And
Yep.
even in ballet, I dare say all those individual sports, in a sense, they kind of have teammates. Even though their teammates are performing individually, they kind of have other teammates. So I would find about how to make
right. So if they get to the competing level, it's true. But it's they have to conceptually understand that what they're doing in their little space also can be part of a bigger thing.
Right.
So it's just harder than saying, hey, you're up at bat, it's your turn next, and then you're going to go out in the field and everybody's got to work together, or that's not going to work. So
yeah,
it's just a different concept. So
yeah, it is. I agree. How old is your son that does BJJ?
So he's 13.
Okay.
He did it for probably 6 months when he was, I don't know, he was the smallest kid there, probably 6 or 7. And then they moved it, but now he wants to start again because a bunch of his friends do it. So hopefully he'll be starting again. But I watched this thing with, I guess, Mark Zuckerberg explaining jiu-jitsu and how you first go in there and it's like a total humiliating, humbling experience, because you go in there and they put the smallest person on you and they just roll you around the mat, and it doesn't matter how big you are, how smart you are. It doesn't matter, because that person knows a ton more than you. So I think that in itself will help him a lot.
Right.
Just getting him to humble, but also he's like an engineering head. So him being able to calculate all the moves that he could make and against the other person, and he loves chess. So like putting all of that into physical activity. Exactly.
Yeah,
it's like
no.
human chess. Yeah.
Have you ever done it yourself? Have you done a session?
No.
It's so hard. It's like amazing. You can go, I'm a big guy, but yeah, like the smaller guys, I mean, they'll have me tapping in seconds. It only takes somebody maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ahead of the game, that what they know versus what you know is just unbelievable. It takes a lot of patience. But for children, if any child, anyone who does it that age, that's a gift, because they'll be like, they'll never get bullied, they'll never be bothered, and they'll have a lot of confidence. Like the BJJ guys just have a lot of confidence. I practice a martial art, which I know you're very well aware, called Krav Maga.
Sure.
So I love Krav. It's my passion. I can do it every day. And so we also at our Krav gym, we have a BJJ studio also. But so it's fun.
So now that you're rebuilding, you start up your business again, or you went to a new business?
No, I stayed in the same business I've always been. I just I don't know. I got better at it. It got better. I obeyed. God told me to write the book. I wrote the book. He told me to help other men, make a program to help other men. I did that. Now it's not like it doesn't sustain. I don't even really make any money off the books and all that. It's probably been a lost leader. It's just something that I feel like I'm called to do it. I feel like it's an assignment for me. So I've done it. So, So my main business is land, and we also have an education business around it where we teach others how to flip land. And
Wow.
yeah, that's been my main thing. So
Is it, and it's commercial, it's residential?
it's residential vacant lots that people can build on. I mean, I do commercial too, but for the most part, the bread and butter is that and ranches. And people buy them to either build on it or just to hold for a long-term investment. So it's been, because we're in a very, Florida is a very popular area. People are moving
Yeah.
here, so we're close to them, 10 minutes to the beach. So people, they want to be near the water. They want to be, they want to be here. So they'll buy our lots. And we have our particular area has over 300,000 platted lots.
Wow.
So it's a big inventory of people to choose from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And walk me through it, because I know, flipping houses is something that most people understand. Is flipping land the same, or you
it
buy
is.
plots of land, you fix it up?
So
How does it work
a
exactly?
little a little bit of everything. So I can buy a larger parcel and I can subdivide it into individual lots and put driveways, put curbing, put everything in there and resell that. We can take a commercial piece and get zoning and make it ready for something else. But for the most part, we have a lot of already platted lots. So ironically, a lot of people from Israel buy these here. So we've had a lot of Israeli buyers.
Yeah,
There were some
I don't.
guys there were some guys that were coming here and they were going over there and giving seminars there, people, and they were buying them. And I know because my title company was the one doing all their title work. So, but that being said, we have these plot lots that are just ready. You can put a house on it tomorrow. So unlike a house where you got to buy it, and I've done that too. So I know the house game. When we had the big meltdown back in like 08, 09, I
Yeah.
was one of the top buyers of distressed assets, meaning like, homes where people abandoned and or in.
Right.
So I know that game very well. But here's the thing though, it's just such a pain. You got to go, you got to buy it, you got to, get a contractor, you got to do
You
all
got to
the
fix
repair.
it. And yeah.
And yeah, and then we have all these TV shows. When I started doing all this, there wasn't all those TV shows. Now with all these TV shows, everybody wants to do it.
Right.
Everybody wants an Airbnb. Well, like for a very long time, like there was a long time I was the only game in town with land. Now there's been a lot of people that have made programs about it. They teach courses about it. So now everyone's out there trying to do it. So there's a lot more people, but still it's a lot better and it's easier. I just like it because it's very low maintenance, and whether you buy them and hold them, whether you buy them and sell them, it's just much easier. And so yeah, so that's the game.
Yeah. I am addicted to those shows, or at least I used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to want to be an architect. So all of those shows are, to me, are amazing.
I
So do
would
you?
yeah, I wish someone would make one of those shows that show the real issues though, because they make it look all glamorous and nice, and TV does that. I mean, I get that. But that being said, like, typically, your time of repairs are double than what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Your expenses are double. So, and your profits cut in half. So that's just typically the deal on that. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So I like land.
And how long do you usually hold the land before it's flipped? Like, do you have a set amount of time that
It
your goal
varies.
is?
It varies, but I always say this. I buy the land in the morning, I go to lunch, I sell in the afternoon. So I'm getting in and out all the time. That's my main goal. So
All right, that sounds good to me.
yeah,
Awesome.
that's my main goal in all of them. I flip them quick. I have a large, we look for buyers all the time, and so that's the main goal. Now, if I'm getting a killer deal that's just so darn good, then we'll just buy it. And some I'll forget about it. Some I'll buy for the kids for later, and just some will just sell when they sell when
So
someone just holds.
yeah. So speaking of kids, I just saw like a TikTok or something. Like, what's the best investment you can do for your kids? And the guy's response was, buy each of them a house when they're born, and then rent it out until they're 18 and let them decide if they want to sell it, buy it, or remain landlords. Do you agree with that?
I mean, it's not a bad idea. I mean, it depends on a lot of things. Like, I mean, when my sons were born was right during the time when the bust happened. So it was like we were flying, we had multiple houses ourselves. Like we had investment homes, vacation homes, condos, like we had all sorts of things ourselves. And so that time when things went really down, So I was buying a lot of distressed property. So I was buying homes cheap. That would have been a good time to put some homes in my kids' name. Like I bought a waterfront home for like 100,000.
Wow.
I actually bought a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home. It was not in good shape. It was pretty bad, but livable and a not great area for $16,000. And
Wow.
I flipped it for 22,000, and it took me forever. It took me 2 months to flip it. So a house that cheap, okay, it took so long to flip because nobody wanted it. Nobody
Right.
wanted it. So yeah, that would have been the time to buy a lot of stuff, but hindsight being 2020. I mean, and also at the time, capital was very limited,
Right.
so because being in land, I had over 200 lots at the time when everything went bust.
Wow.
So which they call the Great Recession. So I had over 200 lots, and those lots become toxic. Nobody wants them. Like, just you
Right.
can't even. People actually gave me lots for free, so it was like nobody wants this. So lots at one point I was selling for 70,000. I could buy them all day long for 1,000. You
Wow.
know, and
That's
and and I,
crazy.
and I didn't want to do it, and I didn't want to do it because it was so scary. And that. So
Yeah.
the lesson is, like Warren Buffett says, be fearful when everyone is greedy, and be greedy when everyone's fearful. So just do the opposite. So
Wow.
yeah, that's the
And
thing.
do you have that, like my biggest fear would be like I would see this lot, but I want that lot and I own this, I live in this house, but I found this house. Like you ever have like, you know, seeing that better thing that you bought and then just want to just move to the next one as you're looking around at properties?
Well, there was a time when I was buying distressed assets, okay, and very specifically luxury distressed assets. So these are homes that no one was paying the mortgage on. They were empty. They were all mega million-dollar mansions, beachfront homes, you name it, waterfront homes with giant movie theaters in them. I mean,
Wow.
some were former sports stars. Like they were like, I mean, yeah. So they were all incredible. So yeah, I mean, you just kind of like there was a time when I had no money, but I'm buying $4 million homes, and just because of the system and the strategy I have to do it, I was able to do
Right.
it. They weren't for me to live in; they were me to flip and make money and
Yeah.
move on. So, but yeah, of course, many times, there's many lots we have. I mean, I had so many lots, beachfront lots, waterfront lots, things we wanted to do different things with. So yeah, that's part of the game. But I mean, also you have to sell stuff too. So,
And you have a realtor license as well?
I do not. I do not. I operate as a principal. So
Nice. Got
yeah.
it. And are your kids interested in the business? Is that something you'd want to bring them
Um,
into?
Not really. I mean, if they wanted to invest in real estate as an investment purely and not as a source of income, then yes. But as a source of income, I don't know. I don't know. I hope they find something better for them to do.
They haven't
It's good
expressed any interest?
sometimes, but I mean, it's good and it's been a blessing for them. And I buy land for them so they have their own lots too. But by the way, getting back to about like for investment for your children, it could everything. Buy a house, buy stock, buy Apple stock, buy when they're born. But in Florida here, you can prepay their college early, which is a great thing to do. So as a parent, does not have to worry about college. So the younger they are, the cheaper it is. So, but no, like looking back at everything, it's one thing to invest in real estate when you have to do it like as your income, but if you're just making investments for the future, it's a lot more fun
That's
um
true. That's
I
true.
mean
It's like day trading versus
yeah,
regular
and you can hold it. Like it's
investing.
like you can buy that stock and hold it. And I do a lot of that too, but it's just like sometimes I just kind of I wondered, well, what if I just had a corporate job? I mean, but I hated the corporate. I was in the corporate world and I hated it. So I mean, the good thing with my gig is, you're out in land all day. The land's gorgeous. It's a good environment. It's fun to be out there, and you want to go in early, you go in early. So yeah. So
Awesome.
that's the thing.
And so now your relationship with your kids is good? Is it's the where you want it to be?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and it was good then too, but only because they had grace for me. But I just like I don't want to say I hid from them, but I avoided a lot of things. Like I didn't like completely abandon them, but I just like I'd put off like a lot of the times, like my own time. Like I pretty much just gave up my own time, that my visitation rights, and just because I was just so ashamed of who I'd become. So, but it wasn't that I didn't love them or didn't want to be with them, and I didn't avoid them like forever. But it was just like I would just stretch out this time where instead of seeing them every other weekend, it'd be once a month, and I'd avoid a lot of school things. I had this thing that everyone's, talking about me or taking her side. And now, like my ex, in her case, like like if you met me and you met her, she's very likable, so she's gonna be like, yeah, like he couldn't work it out with her, something must be wrong with him, so it's a hard thing to think you're competing against. Now in the end, we're way past all that, and in the end maybe no one even knew or no one even cared. I don't know, but I think it's just normal to think like that, and it happens. So luckily we were always good. I just kind of regretted that time. But as soon as life got better for me, I was with him all the time, all the time. And then my ex was easy, like, hey, you know what? I know it's not part of our quote unquote our plan or our time, but can I get them for dinner, or can I, can they stay with me, or can we go somewhere? We go here this weekend? She was like cool with everything. So it became like anything that I had to use before I had to fight like for every extra second for was, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So we went from like following the divorce court plan to a T to like really just doing whatever we want, which is really how divorce I think should be. Two parents calling each other and saying, hey, is it okay if I have them this weekend?
Yeah.
So
And you guys live close?
we do. Yeah, we're like 20 minutes apart.
That's
So
great.
and I've never said no to her for anything, and she's never said no to me. So it's always been pretty good. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's great. So, this is the Two Dad to Quit podcast, and we like all of our guests to share a Two Dad to Quit moment. And we would love to hear that moment that you were the proudest of your kids, and you think about it and you get the biggest smile on your face. And when somebody asks you how the kids are doing, this is the story you pull out of your pocket. So we'd
uh,
love for you to share that with our listeners.
oh man, there's so many, but I mean, man, I get emotional. So it's hard. Just a lot of them,
Yeah.
we our family went through a journey that I never wanted us to go through, So just their resiliency and the fact that I get compliments about them all the time, and one time we're at dinner and my son said, Daddy, we knew you'd never give up.
Wow.
Yeah. They knew what I went through. They knew it was tough, and they never gave up. And my what made it all worthwhile as a dad, one of my big things I always wanted them to learn was to be certified scuba divers, because it's a passion my dad instilled in me. It's a life
Hmm.
passion for me.
Yeah.
Fishing is a life passion for me that is a gift my dad gave to me. And my dad was not good at a lot of other things, but the one thing he was good about is he passed on like major passions for me and my brother. My brother hunts all over the world. My brother's like a big time hunter, and my dad, passed on that passion to him. So I wanted to pass that on to my kids, and they learned, well, when they were born, they were scuba, like they were young, maybe 4 or 5, and they learned to scuba in the pool, but to actually go out there in the reef and be, legit certified. So last year we just did that, and that was like, I felt like if I died that day, it would have been like the perfect day. I was fine with that. I felt like, okay, I've done my part, and I taught them an amazing thing that they can have a legacy and move on. And if you're a diver, you understand that, or if there's
Yeah.
just something else. So like for me, that was just like the one thing I always wanted to do. And for the couple years prior, like I wasn't financially in a position able to do it. So to get back to going on first class vacations, spending money, doing things that we wanted to do. And man, I'm sorry I broke up so much, man.
No,
I
it's
just
it's all good. It's all good.
divorce is hard, man. It's hard, But I
Yeah.
mean, but this year we're living in victory. We've been living in victory for a while. So that's the great part. And even like not just the victory for me, but the victory from them. They're thriving in what they're doing. I feel great as a dad because about the scuba. That's my two dad to quit. But also walking over and sitting next to my ex at a game at halftime, being around, like I'm around their team and their school all the time. All the parents know me. Like I no longer have like a social anxiety about going to anything, whereas before I did. And
Sure.
now like I'm openly embraced by everybody. And I just think that, and then my ex, like the healing that comes with the family, my prayer for God for a long time was, Lord, please heal her. I mean, soften her heart. That was my prayer. I'm like, God, please soften her heart. And this year, and I'll go real quick, but this year was Father's Day. And so one of my sons had a weekend away at sports, so It was in Orlando, and which is like 3 hours from here. So I said, okay, she was going to go one day, I was going to go the next. So she says, okay, well, we'll get a hotel and I'll just leave that night and we'll just leave that way. Everyone's in one place and just get the same hotel. We can split it. So I'm like, no, that's all right. So I got her like a really, really nice Airbnb, like really like
Nice.
luxurious, kind of like the way we used to always travel and when we were together. So, and I said, look, I'll just come the next day or that night and, and then you can go, whatever. So she was super happy with that, super cool. And it was the first time since all of this happened that we actually had a conversation together in a room by ourselves and
Wow.
like normal people. And it felt really good. So it just felt like everything had just come around. And this year I just felt like the last couple of years have been a nice gift, so
That's awesome.
so God's patient. And yeah. So
Yeah, and the last thing we like to leave our listeners with is some sort of advice you would give to anybody thinking about divorce, going through divorce, that maybe that you would have given yourself back then, that you can share with our listeners.
I mean, I'd say don't do it. I mean, honestly, a mentor of mine told me beforehand when the things weren't so good, and I was thinking about getting divorced. And yeah, man, there's hotter women out there, there's better things out there, I'll make more money, I'll be single, and life will be more fun. He goes, man, and he's a little bit older, he's been around, he's smarter, and he goes, everyone I know and he's still married. I know the guy that's been married to his high school sweetheart. He goes, everyone I know that's been married and they're remarried, whatever, they're not better off for getting divorced. So if you can save your marriage, if you can fix your marriage, fix it, figure it out somehow. If not, and you're just too far gone, I get that too. It's hard, and I would just say, don't let the battle of the divorce itself, leave you battered, tattered, and so you have nothing left to give your kids. Because your end goal is to have a lot of you, and have the best of you to give your children. And don't let that get taken from you. Don't let them take the pieces from you, because I call divorce court the slaughterhouse of men, and they want to take away your alphaness. They want to take away who you are. They want to take away your spirit. And all those things are needed. They're needed for you. They're needed for your family to survive, So all that alphaness that was taken away from me, that's why I became a less earner afterwards for a while. And so I would just say that, and just trust in God, and trust in his ways. And one day it'll all make sense, and it looks like me and you are still trying to find sense in it all, and just be happy with knowing that one day you'll get the sense, and just enjoying the moments as they go. And
Yeah, thank you so much, Rob.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So before we go, this has been the Two Dad to Quit podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
This podcast provides a platform for our guests to express their own personal views and opinions. Some or all of these views and opinions may not be shared by Ben and or Yoel.
Thank you for listening to the Two Dad to Quit podcast. Available at twodadtoquit.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.